When I was 12, my family moved to a remote area of Oregon, miles from the nearest town. We had a big piece of land surrounded by thick pine forest. It was peaceful, quiet, and completely isolated. The house was built in the 1940s and had all the typical old house features: creaky floors, a spooky attic, and a rundown shed about 30 feet from the back door. That shed was full of old tools and junk left by the previous owner. My dad always said he'd clean it out, but he never did. We mostly stayed away from it. The first time I noticed something strange was on a weeknight, close to midnight. I was reading under the covers with a flashlight when our dog Max started barking like crazy. Max was a golden retriever, super friendly but always alert. When he barked like that, it meant something was wrong. I crept out of bed and peeked out the window. He was facing the shed, barking into the darkness. The motion sensor light near the back door was on, casting long shadows across the yard. I couldn't see anyone, but Max wouldn't stop. I didn't go outside. I just watched until he calmed down, then went back to bed. The next morning, we found deep boot prints in the dirt between the house and the shed. My dad brushed it off, saying it was probably a neighbor or some drifter passing through, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Over the next few weeks, Max barked at the shed again and again. Each time we'd look outside and find nothing, but the footprints would return, and they always led to the shed, never away from it. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps crunching on the gravel outside my window. I froze. The steps stopped, then started again, moving toward the shed. I peeked through the blinds just as the motion light flicked on. For a second, I saw him, a tall man standing by the shed door, wearing what looked like a dirty gray coat. His face was hidden in the shadows, and then the light went out. My heart pounded in my chest as I backed away from the window. I woke my parents. My dad grabbed his rifle and went outside, but the man was gone. The footprints were fresh, leading straight to the shed. This time, my dad unlocked the doors and checked inside. All he found were rusty tools and old tarps. He added a new lock and reinforced the doors. Things stayed quiet for a while. Then, a month later, Max disappeared. We searched everywhere, the woods, the road, even asked neighbors. But he was gone. I was heartbroken. I told myself maybe he'd gotten lost in the woods. That night, I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was the shed, Max, and the man I'd seen. Around 3 a.m., I heard the back door creak. I got out of bed and tiptoed into the hallway. My dad was already up, holding his rifle. We moved to the back door just as the motion light flickered on. There, standing by the shed, was the man again. Only this time he was holding something. In one hand, a knife. In the other, Max's collar. My stomach dropped. My body felt weightless, like I was about to fall over. My dad shouted and raised the rifle, but the man turned and bolted into the woods. We called the police, and they searched the area, but found nothing. What they found inside the shed made me sick. The dirt floor had been cleared. Symbols were carved into it, crude, disturbing shapes. In the corner was a pile of bones. Animal bones, hopefully. Behind a false panel in the shed wall, the officers found a backpack full of things that didn't belong to us. Wallets, watches, old clothes. Stuff that must have belonged to other people. The strangest thing was a notebook filled with strange symbols, messy handwriting, rambling notes, and creepy drawings of houses, families, and eyes. It felt like a message, like he was telling us he'd been watching us the way he'd watched others. The police took everything. That night, while we were packing to leave, I looked out my window one last time. The shed was wrapped in police tape, fluttering in the breeze. Everything was quiet. But just beyond the tape, maybe 10 feet into the trees, I saw a face staring back at me. The moment I blinked, it was gone. I screamed my dad's name, yelling, "He's back!" My dad ran in and looked out the window. I pointed toward the shed. He was to the left, right by the woods. My dad grabbed his rifle and stormed outside, screaming in rage and firing shots into the dark. You can't imagine the anger of being driven out of your own home by some crazy, dangerous man who likely killed your dog. My dad was at his breaking point. I think in that moment he wanted to kill him. We moved out a few days later to a much less isolated part of Oregon.